Hey guys, with the confirmation about Corvus's kit, it's time to establish a new pull plan. I see quite a lot of question marks and people are wondering what to pull for next and why. We're gonna figure all of this out in this video. Let's first talk about what even makes a character a considerable pull choice. Let's say you would be a character in Reverse1999 that gets released into Reverse1999. What criteria would you have to fulfill in order for people to pull for you? First of all, you have to have huge boobs. I'm kidding. You will have to be part of the meta game. That means you will have to be a best in slot for the teams that you see right here on your screen. If you will become a new character and you want me to pull for you, then you will have to be a best in slot for the Blood Tide team, for the Dynamo archetype, for Impromptu, for Ultimate, right? You get the point. You want to establish yourself into one of the meta tier teams. Otherwise, you wouldn't be worth the investment, especially for a free-to-play. You know what I mean? There is, of course, more to it. You could also be a character that brings a new archetype with you, that you are a future investment. Look at it as you looked at Baccarola back then. Baccarola was pretty mediocre if you looked at her individually, but she brought this new archetype with her called Impromptu. And therefore, we knew that if we're gonna pull for Baccarola right now, she's not gonna help us right now. She's a future investment. And then future characters with the Impromptu archetype, with the Impromptu synergy, we will have to pull for these characters. Just as it was with Aleph and with Kiparina, we have to establish the Euphoria update for Voyager. Now Regulus joins the fray to make this a little bit more versatile and stuff, you know? You get the point. And those are really the two big criterias that you will have to fulfill. You have to be part of one of the meta tier teams, and you have to be a best in slot. That is very, very important. Or you bring a new archetype with you and you be a future investment. There's one more thing that you could do. For example, you could be such a broken character for a team that is not meta, like the Poison team. For example, if you would join the game as a character for Reverse1999 and you would be like a new broken main DPS, let's say, for the Poison archetype, and at the same time in the version that you are released we get like a Tuesday Euphoria or something, like imagine that, right? That of course would bring a team that doesn't really exist in the meta right now, that like you could elevate a team like this to become part of the meta, and then of course people would also pull for you. But yeah, I talked again way too long about this. It's enough talk. Let's jump into the first character, into the next character that is actually going to be released, and see if we should pull, why should we pull, what's the whole purpose. Let's talk about it. The next character that is going to be released is of course Moldir. Now I want to mention one more thing, that it is also very, very important at what time a character is released, and everything that is going on and around this character at the time. Aleph is a very, very good example. We talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to go over this example or like one more time right now. We're going to focus now on Moldir. So we just clarified that you will have to be a best in slot in one of the best teams in the game, otherwise it's not worth gonna be pulling for you. And Moldir is unfortunately not gonna be that. If we look, there are two teams in which we would play Moldir in. One is the Dynamo archetype, okay, because yeah, Ulrich and Lucy, their incantations, they profit from ultimate might. And that is exactly what Moldir provides to the team. Of course there is more, like she counterattacks with her ultimate, she provides passion drain, yada yada, right? So the point is Dynamo would be a considerable choice, at least, to play Moldir in. The problem is that she's not the best in slot even right now. That is Mercuria. The crit rate that Mercuria provides is just more beneficial than the ultimate might that Moldir would provide. Crit rate is always the best stat to raise for every character, for every team in the game. So crit rate outclasses ultimate might, therefore Mercuria is better than Moldir in this team. Even though they profit from ultimate might, crit rate is still always better. So that is a little bit unfortunate for Moldir. She's not even gonna be the best in slot there. And to make matters even worse, we are able to look in the future. And in the very next version, there is an even better character coming out than Mercuria. Mercuria will be outclassed in her slot in the Dynamo archetype team by the release of Sharon, and Sharon makes this team complete, and that is the character that you will play in the Dynamo archetype team. So you can see, in the present, Moldir doesn't have a best in slot in any team, and in the future, she's even gonna be more outclassed. And this exact same scenario goes for her other slot that we can put her in, which is the Ultimate archetype team. Moldir provides Passion Drain and Ultimate Might. That is of course everything that the Ultimate archetype would need on paper, right? It's like the perfect fit. And she even uses her ultimate by counter-attacking with it. So, I mean, it's like perfect, you know? But still, as I said, this Passion Drain, we don't need that in the Ultimate archetype team because that's Melania's job and she does it perfectly fine. Then, the Ultimate Might that Moldir provides is not gonna be it either. As we just figured out, crit rate is much more beneficial than Ultimate Might. What does Low Para do? She provides her entire team with 40% crit rate. Like, Moldir's Ultimate Might is not even gonna come close to how beneficial that is for the team, you know? And again, another thing, we are able to look in the future. Next version, the Euphoria update for Getian is gonna be released. And Getian is gonna be even better than Low Para, who's already better than Moldir. You know what I mean? And therefore it is very crystal clear and easy to see that Moldir does not have a space in this game. She does not have her best in slot. You would just completely waste your resources pulling for Moldir. And again, like a character's release date is super important. Look at everything that is going on around Moldir. We have Nautica, we have to pull for Fatutu, Sharon is coming out, there is a Sentinel is on the horizon, we have to pull for Lucy, and you know, the Euphoria banner with Semmelweis and Ezra and stuff. There is way too much that we would be better off investing in compared to Moldir, unfortunately. And that is why Moldir is gonna become part of our must-skip category. She's our first must-skip character. Sorry, Moldir. I wanna mention something real quick, that not every single character is always either a must-pull or a must-skip. We have a little bit of a gray area here. And Regulus, that is part of our current Euphoria banner, is a very good example for this, because yes, she is the best in slot for the impromptu lineup, right? That would, in theory, of course, make her a must pull. She's the best in slot in one of the best teams in the game. You must pull for her. In this very specific case, that is not true, because yeah, she is a tiny little bit better than Voyager, but she fulfills the same job as Voyager. Both of them get the job that they have in this team done. Regulus is such a tiny little bit better than Voyager that investing the resources into Regulus, if you already have Voyager, is not gonna be worth it. Because again, look at everything else that is going on. As Nautica, you want portraits for that, you have to get Fatutu, you have to get Lucy, right? You get the point that, yeah, if you like truly wanna min-max the like 0.001% that Regulus would make this impromptu team better by that margin. If you want to go for that and you would consider your resources, like your Unilogs being worth that, sure, you could go for Regulus. If the impromptu team is like your favorite team in the game, that is what you have by far the most fun with, and you want to have that roster like as like maxed out, min-maxed as you possibly can, sure, then you go for Regulus. But in general, you should skip Regulus, as that is such a tiny little improvement that is not worth Unilogs, you know? If you already have Regulus, you just need to upgrade to Euphoria, okay, lucky you, then you can go ahead and do that. But pulling for Regulus is not worth it. That doesn't make her a must skip though, right? As I explained. So for Regulus, in that specific case, you can pull if you wanted to, if you like fine with managing your resources like that, sure, I wouldn't blame you. You shouldn't, it's not a must pull and it's not a must skip. That is the point that I want to get across here. So Regulus falls into something that I would call the gray area, okay? And yeah, there's gonna be a whole version with characters like that. That's why I wanted to bring this up real quick. But now let's move on to the next characters that are gonna release, and we're gonna first talk about Sentinel. And spoiler alert, she is also gonna fall into the gray area that I just put Regulus in. Because if you want to play Sentinel, you have to play her in the Blood Tide team. That's her only spot. Otherwise, if you don't have Nautica, then Sentinel is a must skip. And there's also a way where Sentinel becomes a must pull, and that is that if you have Nautica, Semmelweis and Medicine Pocket, then but you don't have Eternity, then Sentinel becomes a must pull, because the Blood Tide archetype team is only functional if you have a character that increases the Blood Tide in some way, shape or form. Eternity does it by dealing damage to her own team. That is very, very good and very beneficial. Sentinel has a mechanic that caters specifically increasing the Blood Tide more than by the usual means that Eternity would do. Also, Sentinel outclasses Eternity in every other aspect as well. She deals a tremendously high more amount of damage. She fills the Blood Tide way more than Eternity does. So to make it as simple and easy and fast as possible, Sentinel outclasses Eternity in every single thing that she does, and by a pretty significant margin as well. So here we go again. This is a best in slot for the best team in the entire game, right? Nothing even comes close to Blood Tide yet. So that would, again, just like it was with Regulus, make Sentinel, in theory, a must pull. She's not a must pull though, because you always want to prevent the thing from happening that you make a character in your lineup become completely useless and be only there to collect dust in your suitcase. That is a complete waste of resources if you would do that, right? And another thing, and you would do this with Eternity if you would pull for Sentinel. You would never use Eternity ever again in your life if you would pull for Sentinel. Eternity would stay useless for an eternity, you know? So that's a reason why you shouldn't pull for Sentinel if you already have Eternity. And the role of a character is also very, very important. Sentinel is not like the main or sub DPS or the sustain. She's the support, and she doesn't like provide anything unique to the team that wouldn't already be there. Sentinel, you would play Sentinel in this team to fill the Blood Tide, but you already have Eternity. She already fills the Blood Tide enough. She provides Nautica with the faith that Nautica needs already. This team is already gonna obliterate every single stage in this game on turn 2, right? So you should ask yourself the question, why would you pull for Sentinel? What is like the true purpose? And you will come to the realization that Sentinel doesn't like make the team complete. The team is, without her, by far the best team in the entire game. You would make Eternity just be in your suitcase and collect dust. You don't want that, so why would you pull for Sentinel, right? Why would you pull a character for a team that wins every single stage on turn 2, right? Like, what is the purpose of this? And the answer is, of course, there is no purpose to that whatsoever. You don't need to make a team stronger that is already true power, that is already obliterating every single content in this game on turn 2. There is simply no reason here at all to pull for Sentinel other than to flex, right? And that is not what we are about. We are about efficiency when it comes to resource management and like going over everything with an actual brain. And if we do it like this, then we should skip Sentinel. Now Sentinel is not a must skip though, because she is still, the fact still exists that she is a best in slot for the best team in the game. That prevents her from becoming a must skip. She's not a must pull for the reasons that I just did go over. So what is the logical place to put Sentinel in? The gray area. You can pull for Sentinel. I wouldn't blame you if you would. It would not be like a completely ridiculous waste, right? It wouldn't be stupid to pull for Sentinel, but you also don't have to. You can freely skip Sentinel if you have Eternity. If you don't have Eternity, then you must pull for Sentinel. Keep that in mind. So yeah, all things considered, when it comes to Sentinel, she will belong to the gray area just as Regulus. And then we can move on to Sharon. Now Sharon is, yeah, pretty easy to understand and quite simple when it comes to should you pull or shouldn't you pull. You can see, yeah, of course, he will be part of the Dynamo team. So there is one criterion checked. He has a best in slot in one of the best teams in the game. That is already really, really fantastic. But it doesn't stop here, because if you look at the Dynamo lineup right now, there's Mercuria in there. Mercuria is not a Dynamo character. We just lacked a Dynamo character, and that's why we had to fill the spot with the next best character, like with the best character that we have access to at the time, and that was Mercuria. But Mercuria is not an actual true part of the Dynamo archetype team. She belongs to the rank up team. So we want to find a character that replaces Mercuria, and Sharon is not only just that. Mercuria is out of the team once Sharon releases, and Sharon takes her spot there. Not only that, Sharon is such a good, like, you know, look at it like this. It is not that, oh yeah, Sharon is a Dynamo character. He's quite decent and he fulfills the needs of this team a little bit better than Mercuria, right? No, he is like an absolute gigantic monster for this team. He elevates this team to a whole new level. With this Dynamo team, now with Sharon in it, is actually like it closes the gap to the Blood Tie team. It comes close to the Blood Tie team, which no other team in the game accomplishes. But the Dynamo team with Sharon in it makes that happen. There's more. Because now Sharon is so extremely beneficial for the Dynamo archetype team that he makes it so that you can now get rid of Ezra, of your sustain, and you don't no longer need your Ezra as your sustain. You can now go and min-max this slot with, like, Kiparina would be the best choice. You can now put in Fatutu, right? You get the point. You put in a better sustain character into this team if you get access to Sharon, right? So I think I told you enough, and it is crystal clear that he's such a good character. Not only that he makes his team complete, he elevates this team to a whole new level. He makes his team more versatile. This is the second best team in the entire game. It comes close to Bloodtide with him, right? I mean, yikes. Like, that is a must-pull character if I have ever seen one. And there you go. Sharon is our first true must-pull character right here. Congratulations. Okay, then in the same version as we get Sentinel and Sharon, we will also get 3 new Euphoria updates for Centurion, Getian, and Druvis. Let's talk about Druvis first real quick, because Druvis is one of those characters, she becomes one of those characters that you can look at a future investment. Why? Because as I explained earlier, she comes in with introducing a new archetype called Fire Sprouts. So if you want to look at Druvis as a future investment, and you're gonna pull for Druvis and establish a Euphoria, then you know that moving forward you will have to pull for every single character that comes out and that has the same archetype, Fire Sprouts. Because if you wouldn't pull for these upcoming characters, then you would have just wasted your resources into pulling and establishing the Euphoria update for Druvis. That would have been a complete waste, and you don't want to do that, so be aware of that. For the time being, Druvis would be completely useless, but it's a future investment. If there are characters coming out with Fire Sprouts, which most likely at some point will be, otherwise what's the point of establishing this Euphoria update, right? Then, yeah, of course, if you like, oh, Fire Sprouts sounds amazing, I want to play this archetype, yo, I'm waiting for a new archetype, I'm already kind of tired of Bloodtide and Dynamo, even though they just released, right? I would totally understand the point if you want something brand new, even though we theoretically just got 2 brand new archetypes introduced. I still get the point. To me personally, it's also the case that Dynamo and Bloodtide, they already feel old. But yeah, that is the downside that comes with being able to look into the future and having everything already perfectly figured out before the characters even come out, you know what I mean? It is what it is. The point in case here is that Druvis belongs into the gray area, because this comes fully up to you. Do you want to play Fire Sprouts in the future? Can you make the decision and justify it in terms of resource management to pull for new characters that have the same Fire Sprout mechanic attached to them or not? So there you go. Then we can move on to Centurion and Getian, who are interesting because they both belong to the same archetype, which is the Ultimate Archetype team. Centurion is a DPS character for the Ultimate Archetype team, and Getian would take the best in slot, spoiler alert, for the support slot in the Ultimate Archetype team. Now, let's talk about Centurion first. Centurion is not better necessarily of a character than Recoleta is. Recoleta will maintain the best in slot for the Ultimate Archetype team. Now, what this game lacks is a truly, really top tier viable Beast Afflatus damage dealer. And Centurion will become exactly that, right? If you would face a stage where you need, or you want, because of Afflatus advantages, need a Beast Afflatus character, Centurion is your choice, and for that specific stage then, you can use like Centurion instead of Recoleta. Or, the scenario also occurs that if you don't have Noir or Recoleta, then Centurion is like, it turns kind of into a must pull, if I'm being honest, because you don't want your main DPS to be Buddy Fairchild. That's a 5-star. So you would then replace Buddy Fairchild and make Centurion become your main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team and play it together with Melania. And then, spoiler alert, of course, low para loses her spot, or Mercuria or whoever you played in this, maybe even Moldir, loses their spot then to Getian. And that's about it. So Getian is, where does he belong, right? Where do these characters belong? Are they must skips? Are they must pulls? Are they gray areas? So it depends a little bit. Like, as I said, if you have like Recoleta or Noir, then you can freely just skip Centurion. There's no need for you to have Centurion. You could still make a little argument of, oh, what about the Beast Afflatus? The DPS, what if I need that, right? That is not a strong enough argument, though, to like justify pulling for her, even though she will be part of a Euphoria banner. But that would still not be worth it, just because she's a Beast Afflatus. No, that's not enough to justify it. But you have to keep in mind that if you don't have Recoleta or Noir, and you use the Buddy Fairchild right now as your main DPS character for the Ultimate Archetype team, you have Melania, right? You maybe have Lopera, you have Mercuria, then Centurion would become a must pull for you, because the Ultimate Archetype that's one of the best teams in the game, and Centurion would be for you the best in slot if you don't have Recoleta or even Noir, right? So where does she belong? I think a fair place is also the gray area here, because it depends on what you have available in your roster. Cool. Now Getian, that to me is a little bit of a different story, because low para is a little bit outdated and just not it anymore, right? The additional damage that Getian provides is like crazy significant here. And like, yeah, to make it as simple and as fast as possible one more time, the upgrade that Getian is for this Ultimate Archetype team is gigantic, right? But then again, it is not like truly 100% necessary to do that. The team is good enough as it is. Again, it depends a little bit. If you use Mercuria in this Ultimate Archetype team, right? Then it would be really good to pull for Getian to free up Mercuria for like the rank up team, for example, right? But yeah, I mean, point in cases, Getian is not 100% must pull. I will put him in the gray area and explain something real quick. In this gray area here, there are characters that lean more towards must skip, right? And there are characters that lean more towards must pull. Getian would lean more towards the category of must pull, while Druvis would lean more into the category of must skip. Okay. Now I will personally definitely pull for Getian, because I do not want to play Mercuria in this Ultimate Archetype team, and I don't have low para. So for me, I will definitely pull for Getian. Just want to get that out of the way real quick. But the choice is honestly up to you. You don't have to replace low para or Mercuria. But the upgrade is huge, so think about it. And he's also part of a Euphoria banner, so he will not be full price, as it would be the case with the Sentinel. And spoiler alert, after Getian, there will not be must pulls coming up. So after Sentinel, for example, you have Sharon as a must pull, right? Good. I think you get the point that I'm trying to get across here, and we can move on to the next version. Alright, then version 3.1. That's a pretty basic and simple one. We can go over it real quick. There's not a must pull here. This is a version where only characters are introduced to fill a spot in case you missed out on something, or you are a new player and you want to establish something while you like just joined the game, basically. Now there are of course differences still between Robushka and Corvus here, and the difference is very basic. Robushka, you can easily freely skip Medicine Pocket is more than good enough of a sustain for the Blood Tide team. You don't need any improvements here. Now she is, if she is the best in slot or not, even depends. Now you have to look at the Blood Tide team, and we have two characters right now that are specifically designed to fill the Blood Tide as their core mechanic, right? And these two characters are Sentinel and Robushka. I would recommend to you to have one of those characters be part of your Blood Tide lineup, so that you have at least one character that is specifically designed towards filling the Blood Tide for Nautica. It is, again, this is not really needed, this is not a must do, but I would highly recommend this, because that ensures you, this guarantees you that you have a Blood Tide team that excuse me, is very future proof. Even like it's already future proof, right? Don't get me wrong, but even more so, you guarantee that this team stays at rank number 1 for like up until the 3rd anniversary. You know, let me say it like that. Is really true. So what about Robushka? She is not a must pull. She's not a must. She is, I would say, like, she is a must skip. If you pulled for Sentinel, then you really don't need Robushka. You all, like, again, her core mechanic is to fill the Blood Tide specifically. If you have Sentinel, Sentinel already does that job, and you don't need to go for the overkill and have two characters that have the same mechanic. Look at this like it is in the impromptu lineup. You don't need to play both Voyager and Regulus. Why? Because they fulfill the exact same job, and they have the exact same core mechanic attached to them. And this is the same thing here going on with Robushka and Sentinel. You need, or you should have, one of those, right? And what I would highly recommend you, what you should do is you should skip Sentinel to save up for Sharon, right? And then use Eternity for the time being. And while Robushka then comes around, you should seriously consider pulling for her and to replace her with Medicine Pocket. Again, not because Medicine Pocket is like mediocre or something like that. Medicine Pocket is absolutely fantastic in this team. He's like perfect and makes everything so smooth and convenient. But again, you should not need, but you really want a character that is specifically designed towards filling the Blood Tide. And so, since you should skip Sentinel, as you shouldn't take the risk of not getting your hands onto Sharon, I would recommend actually pulling for Robushka in that case. Alright, so she belongs into the gray area because, one more time, again, she's not a true must pull. She's not as broken, she doesn't make the team complete or anything like that. But it is really nice to have her if you don't already have Sentinel. Alright, then we can move on to Corvus. And Corvus is a must skip, right? Don't get baited. It depends. If you're a new player, if you did not get your hands onto Lucy, if you joined the game after the 2nd anniversary, or you put so many resources into Nautica and maybe Semmelweis, you know, establishing this Blood Tide team, and then resources weren't enough anymore to pull for Lucy. You don't have Lucy, but you don't want to let this broken free 6-star character Ulrich go to waste. You maybe consider even pulling for Sharon, right? Point in case here is you only pull ever for Corvus if you don't have Lucy. Since Lucy is an absolute must pull, most players should already have her from the 1st anniversary, and you should have saved up enough resources for the 2nd anniversary to be able to pull for Lucy. If not, you made a huge mistake. So, all things considered, Lucy is a way better main DPS for the Dynamo archetype than Corvus is, and therefore Corvus is, I can confidently put her into must skip for 90% of the player base, I would guess, because everyone already has Lucy, and like if you don't have Lucy, you can even consider even skipping Sharon, skipping the whole Dynamo archetype altogether. So yeah, Sharon, Corvus, excuse me, is actually a must skip in my book. Now we have two Euphoria updates here that we also have to talk about, so let's do that real quick. Those Euphoria updates are A-Knight and Argus. A-Knight will belong to the Ultimate Archetype team, he's gonna be another main DPS for this team, and Argus will belong to the Rank Up team and she will be able to fill a slot there. So let's talk about Argus first. She belongs to the Rank Up team and she will be not a replacement, right? She will be a fill-in for Hisabeth or Mercuria in case you miss one of those two characters. If you have Marcus and Via with their Euphoria updates established, then if you missed out on Hisabeth, right? If you didn't pull for Hisabeth, which would be very, very reasonable. If you would have not pulled for Hisabeth, it's reasonable, right? And then if you also don't have Mercuria, or you don't have Mercuria, so yeah, like again, make it as easy as possible. Hey, you lack a character that is not Marcus or Via. For the Rank Up team, Argus can fill in a slot here and it's gonna be fine. And that's about Argus. I put her into must skip. I don't see any reason. I think most players don't even have this Rank Up team. And Argus is nothing special. She doesn't elevate this team to new heights. She is just a slot in, a fill in. I'm sorry, but Argus is not it for me at all. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, if you really invested resources already into Marcus and Via and stuff and you want to make this team complete, I mean, sure. For me, that is a skip, for sure. Then A-Knight, same, is also a must skip, spoiler alert. So he's a main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team. While in the previous version we got a better main DPS for the Ultimate Archetype team with Centurion, and you will have to pull for her. You either have Noir, you have Recoleta, or if you don't have one of these two, you will have Centurion at this point. So A-Knight is completely useless. Even if you're a brand new player that joins in this very version 3.1, A-Knight is still a must skip, because then you should focus on like pulling for Corvus as your main DPS, for example, right? So no matter how you look at A-Knight, that is a must skip. The place that A-Knight has actually in this game is he is a speed farmer. He clears like weak content really, really fast. If you are like, whoa, like Reverse1999, these 2 minutes a day that I invest into Reverse1999 to get the dailies done, or when Lucidscape or the like Limbo, right, when these refreshes, this is taking me too long, man. I play a video game even though I am a complete slave and I don't even have time to actually play a video game, but I still do it for some reason. If that is what your scenario is, then A-Knight is actually the character for you, honestly, because he is a speed farmer. He will save you time. He will clear stages quicker than any other character in this game, right? But that to me is an absolute unrealistic scenario that doesn't make any sense, and therefore A-Knight falls into the must skip category. And that's it for now. Let's make this a little bit visually more clear. And yeah, give me a second. Alright, here it is. That's pretty much the pull plan. Of course, you know what's going on in the 2nd anniversary with Lucy, with Nautica, and everything that is part of the Euphoria banner there, right? I've talked about this a whole bunch, so I will not include these characters here. We are moving on from Moldir into version 3.0 and then into version 3.1. Alright, so Moldir, as we figured out, doesn't have a space, is heavily outclassed by multiple characters no matter where we look, so that is a must skip. cool. Then version 3.0 will have, first of all, Sentinel, who is in the gray area, leaning more towards must skip because she is simply unnecessary. Then we have Sharon, who makes the second best team in the game much better. He makes the team complete, and therefore you must pull for Sharon. Then we have Euphoria updates with Corvus, she leans more towards pull, because if this truly becomes a new archetype, you really want to have Corvus there. We have the Euphoria update for Getian, who is very beneficial and the best in slot for one of the best teams in the game, and therefore you should seriously consider pulling for this guy. We have the Euphoria update for Centurion, who is another main DPS for the ultimate archetype team, which is not needed. She's not the best in slot there either. We have Noah, we have Recoleta, who's the true best in slot. You have the free character Buddy Fairchild. So Centurion is also like a little bit unnecessary, but you know, if you don't have Noah, if you don't have Recoleta, you don't want to rely on a 5-star, boom, Centurion becomes more important to you specifically. Then we can move on into version 3.1, where we have Robushka, which is, as I said, you should pull for Robushka to really like establish make the Blood Tide team complete, so to speak, by having a character there that is here for the job to fill the Blood Tide, specifically above like or more than the normal means via Eternity would be. That's why you should pull for Robushka, but you don't really must have to do that. That's why she's in the gray area that leans more towards must pull. Okay, then we have Corvus, who is a must skip for everyone who has Lucy, right? If you are a new player, if you joined the game after the 2nd anniversary, then this changes, of course, a little bit, because you then want to pull for Corvus and pair her with Ulrich, so that you don't let Ulrich go to waste. And yeah, that's about it. For most of the player base, everyone has Lucy. That is a must pull. You cannot go out of the 2nd anniversary without Lucy, right? We figured all of that stuff out already. And then Corvus is completely 100% irrelevant. That's why you must skip Corvus. Then we have the 2 new Euphoria updates for A-Knight and Argus. Argus is only a slot in. She doesn't elevate the team, she doesn't really do anything super beneficial for the team. She's just here in case you missed out on something better than her, right? That is not a good character, and therefore I call this a must skip. If you don't have Hisabeth, but you have Via, Mercuria and Marcus, yeah, then you can like reconsider what I just said here. Then A-Knight is like even worse than the case of Centurion, and since Centurion is already in the gray area that leans towards must skip, A-Knight is a true must skip. Like there is no way around it, right? No matter how you look at A-Knight, you should not pull for this at all, right? There's no scenario in which we would say, yo, let's pull for A-Knight. It just does not exist. It's even worse than like the Argus cases. And there you go. That's like the true, really good pull plan moving forward and planning ahead, moving to the last steps of the 2nd anniversary and out of it and into the future. We talked about everything in great detail here, way more than I planned to, but it is what it is, and I think this is pretty perfect here. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section down below. I know you consider Corvus a must pull. Every single new character is a must pull in your book. I know how this goes, so never mind, don't tell me anything about that, please. But anyways, I hope this video was fun and informative. If you like Reverse 1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, don't forget to join the Discord server, link to that in the description down below. Take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.